Hey everyone, it's Shane Smythe, back to hear from Salesforce Mojo, formerly called Marketing Cloud Mojo. We're doing something a little bit different here with this course here. We're going to be diving into B2B commerce. So this is a little adjacent to some of the Marketing Cloud material that I've put out over the last couple of years, but it's something that I'm focusing on a lot right now with my current position, and I wanted to be able to provide some value here to my subscribers. And hopefully you find it of value. I find that people who do Marketing Cloud and Pardot commonly are working with commerce teams, especially as Salesforce has continued to grow their commerce applications. So hopefully you find this of some value. Even if you don't work on it day to day, you might find interest in learning it. So I hope you like it as we start with this concept of how do I get started with Salesforce B2B Commerce. Before we dive too far into the B2B commerce hands-on that we'll be doing throughout this series, I wanted to first start by level setting on what does Salesforce's commerce applications look like. Firstly, there is really three different types of commerce applications around today. One main type is B2C commerce. That was previously called Demandware through the acquisition, and that is primarily for high-touch, a large volume B2C applications. The other side of it is on the B2B commerce side, and within that there's really two subtypes. There's the B2b Template and there's the B2B2C template. Now they both cover kind of different specializations in different areas, but think of their B2B template more focused on business to business, while their B2B2C is more focused on end consumers. We might also touch at some point on order management. Order management gives more capabilities to the order lifecycle inside of Salesforce that B2B commerce and B2B2C commerce don't have out of the box. The other things I'll note on this screen here is that it's built on top of Experience Cloud, at least B2B commerce is, and that's what we'll be covering in this series. Experience Cloud Community, CMS, that's where all the content lives. And inside of Salesforce, it lives inside of the standard objects, with some new capabilities that have been added, and then of course on top of the Lightning platform. So for those of you that are new to this concept of B2B, especially inside of a commerce application, I wanted to start with a quick level set of what does this actually mean. So let's say that we have a business like the Home Depot. Most people are familiar with that brand. They are a business. Consumers go to that business. Pretty common for us to go there for home improvement and other material. However, Home Depot has a side of their business where they just sell directly to businesses as well. So in this example, we might have a roofing company here on the left-hand side who buys bulk tools or bulk material from Home Depot, and it's more of a business-to-business transaction versus where a customer will go into the store and they'll buy maybe one or two or three things. So with that kind of in mind, that's the type of use cases that we're going to be setting up throughout this series. So the first question I always get when it comes to B2B commerce is, how do I actually get started? Right now, standard development orgs don't currently have the capability of enabling the B2B commerce application unless you're a partner or a customer who already has the licenses for that. That will likely change in the next couple of months. We've heard rumors from Salesforce that they will be enabling that soon. So if you're watching this post the ability to do that, you will probably have an easier way to get your hands on B2B commerce. But today we're doing this through Scratch orgs. And there's really 4 steps to the Scratch org process. Salesforce has done a pretty good job of documenting this. I wanted to just bring it up a level and talk about the top 4 things and then kind of the value of some of this. And then we'll go through a live demo here of actually getting one set up and configured. Number 1 is we're cloning the entire B2B Commerce for Lightning repository that Salesforce has provided and giving us kind of a local copy of that to work with. 2, we'll actually be moving to the context of that new repo and kind of converting and getting it ready to actually be used for this deployment. 3rd, we'll create our Scratch org using SFDX and also authorizing our Dev Hub if it's not already authorized. And then 4, we'll actually be using some of the capabilities that Salesforce has through this repo to push all this information into the instance so it's really prepped and ready for us to go and hit the ground running. We'll be covering this in the actual hands-on piece of it, but I wanted to talk about the magic of this quick start, create, and setup store because I really love this shell script here. What this does is it actually does a lot for you for the Scratch org. It creates the store, it registers the integrations, which we'll talk about in a bit, It sets up the checkout flow with the integrations and everything you need. It activates the community for you, creates your accounts and contacts and converts that into a community user, assigns the account as a buyer account, and creates a search index. So it's really pristine when you actually get into the instance. And as you kind of go through this course, you'll find that there's actually a lot of this that takes quite a bit of time. But with this shell script and kind of the quick start here, you basically can go in and start checking out almost immediately. So I wanted to just touch on how awesome this is real quick, and then we'll see it in action here in a moment. All right, so my favorite part of each one of those clips where we actually get hands-on and we start getting into it. We're actually going to start here on the Get Repo page. So Salesforce has done a pretty good job of creating this B2B Commerce on Lightning quick start, and it has a lot of different sections in here. You can go into the examples section. You can see a couple of examples of how they've done their checkouts here. You dive into Lightning Web Components and the Force app and go into default and go into the LWC here. You can start to see some of the standard components that they provided here. And they've done that because in many cases there's a requirement to override some of these standard components, and they want to make sure that it's easy to get a good start on that. So we'll probably come back here at some point throughout the course here or series, but where we're going to spend most of our time here today, if we go back up here to the top, is this section on the SFDX. So if we go into SFDX, it has some of the files we're going to be using here up at the top. But as we go down to the bottom, it has actually some of the steps that we talked about previously. So before I go any further, anything that I link or look at here in the series, I'll put down in the descriptions or try my best to. And if I forget, feel free to comment or reach out to me. But you can see that there's some pre-steps here to actually getting SFDX set up in the first place. So if this is your first time doing SFDX, you can follow the guide here, and you can also follow a couple of the trails through Trailhead, and it does a pretty good job of walking through this. One last thing on top of that is you do need the OneCommerce SFDX plugin. Again, pretty easy to get set up and started, but you will need those before you get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to clone the repo and pull it down. And so you'll follow this command here. Seriously, it's just a copy and paste. And from that, you'll go into the actual folder structure, and you go into the folder SFDX. So I'm going to pull up my terminal here, and you can see that we're already in SFDX inside of our repository. So I'm not going to do those steps since I already have this. But the last step you'll need to do before we get going here is you'll go in and you'll run this conversion script. And this will get it all ready and kind of set up the path and everything you need for the rest of this to work. If you haven't already gone through the process of setting up a Dev Hub, I'll also link it down in the description here, but you will need a Dev Hub, which basically is a development instance which you can spin up for free for Salesforce, and then enabling the Dev Hub capability in that. Once you've done that, you will need to log in. I've already done that beforehand since I do this quite frequently. So you'll just go in and you'll follow this command right here. It'll open up a window. It'll prompt you to log in with the instance as your Dev Hub, and then from there, you're off to the races. So we'll scroll down here a bit, and the first spot we're going to start here is this SFDX force org creation line. So we're going to copy that. We're going to bring that into our window here, and you'll notice there's a couple of sections that they've kind of tagged off for us here. So we're going to go to this caret. We're going to back up to username, and you'll put whatever username you'd like to as part of your username of the Scratch org you'll be using for B2B Commerce. So for me, I'm going to probably put something like Shane at salesforcemojo.com. And then once you've done that, the last thing you'll have to do here is you'll have to put in the days or how long you want it to stay alive. The longest you can have it alive is 30 days. So you will want to keep that in mind as you're working through the Scratch org. And if you do any modifications, add data, change configuration, you want to make sure that you set up your own repo and back it up there so that if you do need to deploy another Scratch org, you can do it from the repository that you have instead of starting from scratch each time. So we'll start this by putting 30 days, and we'll click Run. And what this is going to go do and create that scratch org based off of the scratch org definition JSON file that we have. This does sometimes take a minute or two, so if it takes too long here, I might cut to the part where it's over or just kind of speed through this portion in the video. All right, now that we actually have that scratch org created successfully, the next thing we want to do down here is we can go into SFDX force org open, which will open up our new scratch org here, just to validate that everything's working okay for us. But at this point, it will basically have nothing in it, which doesn't do a whole lot for what we're trying to do here. So we're going to come back over here, and the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to actually do the magic script that I talked about earlier. So let's give this a copy, we'll drop it into the terminal here, and run it. This does take quite a bit of time. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to start up a new storefront. So I'm just going to call it Shane Store. Oh yeah, that's right. It does not like non-alphanumeric characters. So we're going to try this one more time here. Back out. Lets me. And we're going to just do Shane to get us started. And that'll run through all of the startup commands, everything. You can name your store something different once you get in there, but the script just doesn't like non-alphanumeric characters. Okay, so now that it's we've actually created our storefront, what it's doing is basically running all of these processes behind the scenes. It'll basically ping the instance every 10 seconds until it detects that everything is done. Again, pretty cool thing. It does it pretty quickly. So we're just going to leave it here, and I'll come back to you once this is all done. All right, we're coming back after about 5 or 10 minutes here of it actually processing and waiting for the instance to be ready. I'm going to quickly scroll through this and just talk over this, but there is a ton that was deployed in the instance. So we can see that it's starting to push some of the source code in here. So some of the tokenization classes, the B2b checkout inventory, adapters, so on and so forth, some of the components, and on and on and on. And making some updates to the overall site and flows, and changing some of the sharing rules, and on and on and on. And you can see all the work that it's doing. Imagine trying to do this all by hand, which is what you have to do in a real implementation. But we kind of have this shortcut, which is pretty fantastic. So you can see this continues to go on for a while here, but we have all of that done. We go to the very bottom, and you can see that it gave a little bit of an error here on the index, so we might have to go do that ourselves. But other than that, everything else seems to have worked. So the last thing we can do here is if you close your browser up here with the tab of the source, or the scratch org, I should say, you can come back over here and do the force open, which will open up that instance for you if you don't already have it open. But let's just do a quick validation that everything worked here, okay? So we're going to come over to our app launcher, and we're going to type in commerce. You can see that the app is there now. And we can see we have a storefront called Shane. So we're going to dive into that real quick. Just to kind of orientate everyone here, and I will do a deeper dive in a following video here, but this is kind of your, call it your cockpit or your control panel. This is where you will know everything about your store. So you can come in here and you can see that we have a couple of the workspaces enabled down here, so we can dive into products, and we can see that some of the products have been added for us helpfully. We can also go into our settings and let's see, administration, and we can see that some of the adapters have been enabled for us, which is how the storefront communicates with external information. So yeah, everything is set up here. And like I said, we'll do a follow-up here with more of kind of each one of these areas, but this is the first step to get started with B2B commerce. And from here, we can go in and customize and make it our own. Thanks for joining us on our first kind of getting started with B2B commerce. Looking forward to going through more of this in the future. Like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and give us a comment if you have any questions.